Hey, what's up guys? It's PixelxKitten, and today's video I'm going to be talking about the recent swatting experience that I had this past Saturday when I was doing my charity stream with survivors.org. And I'm going to answer any questions that I've received, as well as address all of the drama and address like all of, like the speculation that I've received on like TikTok and Instagram. So if you guys are wondering what swatting is essentially when someone anonymously calls the police department that is local to their target and spin up some amazing story about how there is something horrible happening at their address, as well as like they need like immediate attention. There is like generally involving some sort of active shooter. And so the story that was spun in my case was that I was the active shooter. They said that I shot my boyfriend and that I was actively either going to be shooting other people or was going to be unaliving myself, basically just shooting myself. And so that was the story that was spun to my local police department. And so naturally the police department, despite like any sort of like mistrust that they might have in the caller, they have to answer that call. They have to go and check it out, because generally people don't just make that stuff up. And so they came to my house to answer that call. And before I even like answer any questions about like, well, how did they find your address, I'll get to all the questions later. So officers came to my parents' house. They actually shut down the street. They closed off the street, and they had about like, I don't know, 8 to 10, maybe even more squad cars pull up. There were officers in full riot gear with riot shields, assault rifles, and they were just setting a perimeter around my house. And at the time, the day of the charity event, I actually wasn't aware that it was to that magnitude, because fast forward, I only saw like the 6 officers that were in my backyard. I didn't see all the people that were surrounding our backyard. I didn't see like all the cop cars or the squad cars that were in our street and across our street and in like the neighboring streets as well. So I'm kind of glad that I wasn't that I didn't know about this, because then I was able to continue the charity stream mostly unaffected. But they had people here, guns drawn, riot shields up, and my dad received a phone call from one of our neighbors who was the last person to pass by our street before they closed off the street to civilians. Because she passed, and then the cop car like pulled and blocked off the street. She called my dad, who my mom and dad were eating dinner downstairs, and she asked like, hey, like, why are there a bunch of officers like around like with guns pointed at your house? And my dad's like, no, there isn't. Like, that's ridiculous. And so he's going outside to check out what's going on, while my mom is receiving a phone call from our local police department. So my dad goes out in the backyard, still on the call with our neighbor. He sees the squad cars, and they start walking up to him, and he immediately just hangs up the phone. And he listens to what they have to say, and he explains that my daughter's upstairs. She's streaming right now. We're being swatted. So my dad is familiar, as boomer as he is very familiar with the internet and its ways. And he, even before I even had the conversation, when I moved back in with my parents. So I'm going to address this right now, because so many people were like coming for me for living with my parents. And the reason why I do live with my parents is because in August of last year, I left in a very abusive and unsafe relationship, and for lack of better words, they saved my life with me coming back home. And so that's why I've been living in my parents' house, and I already have a house. Like, I bought a house. Everything's like fine. I'm moving out. It's fine. But like, it's no shame for me to be living with my parents. And for all intents and purposes, it was a good thing I was living with my parents, because if they hadn't been that like first line of like defense, or like that first line that like de-escalated the situation, it could have been would not have been best case scenario. I tell you that. It's like if it was just myself and my brother who was streaming, because my brother was joining me for the charity stream, and it was just us two, my dog and everything, it would not have been as like kosher as it was. So I'm actually very lucky and blessed that, one, that my parents took me in after to save me from that abusive relationship, and two, that they were home and here when the officers were surrounding our house. So anywho, He met with the officers. He explained the swatting situation. He explained that no, there's nothing happening here. We're being swatted. And the officers, for some reason, they also knew what swatting was, and so they're like, okay, well, we need to take a real quick around. Can we have we have everybody come out? We just need to talk to everybody. And so normally, I think one of the reasons why people are speculating that this wasn't real, like people are saying that like I made this up and like my dad and I like made this big charade up. The reason why they didn't come in, bust down our front door and charge in and shoot everybody and arrest everybody, because apparently everybody wants worst case scenario when these things happen. The reason why that didn't happen is because, well, my dad was already outside. My mom was receiving a phone call from local PD. Although the officers were prepared for worst case scenario, luckily it never got past that. So my dad explains that his daughter, me, has a very reactive dog who was in the room. He was behind me at the time. So my dad explains to the officer that we have a very reactive dog in the house, and there was a pregnant dog in the house, by the way, who just had 13 puppies. So yeah, good thing there was not worst case scenario, or else we'd have, I couldn't even imagine. But the officer allowed my dad to come inside, to grab my dog Charlie, put him on a leash, bring the dog outside. That's when you see the Twitch clip of of him coming upstairs, me saying I have Charlie, and he explains the situation that I'm being swatted. And so that is why he comes into the room and not an officer, is that the officer's outside with my brother. My brother was already downstairs. My brother was trying to get me water at the time. And so my brother was already downstairs. My mom's downstairs because the officers called her. So she's already aware of the situation. And so it's just me upstairs. And so he's telling me that he needs to restrain Charlie. And I take that moment to basically like, all the information is just going in my head. You know, that meme with like all the numbers like going through. Like, I'm trying to like, because I don't know that they've already spoken to the officers. All I know is that, because for all I know, all he did was see. I didn't know at that time that he had like spoke with the officers. So he comes up, he gets Charlie, and of course I'm freaking out because I just don't want anything to happen to my dog. Like that's my worst fear, is happening to my dog. And so that's when I kind of like go off on Twitch stream about how like, and like sure, like maybe there were things that I could have not said, or I could have just like left, but I purposely left the stream on because I wanted it up there for evidence, maybe to show the officers. I don't know, I knew I didn't want to turn off the stream, but I didn't want anyone who was watching the stream to be concerned like what just happened. So I left it on just to make sure that everybody knew that everything was okay. My cat was like in the camera, like entertaining people while I was gone. And the whole ordeal took about like 5 minutes for me to explain what I was doing. Everybody in the house is safe. Everybody's house is fine. And I explained that I was doing a charity stream. The first person that came to my mind was my ex-boyfriend, who obviously he knows where I live because he'd been my parent. We were dating for 4 years, so it's like, yeah, he was just the first person that came to mind. So I gave the officers his information, his address, and I don't think that he did it, but at the time it was like the only like rational thought I had. But I know that one of the questions I've had was like, well, why you? Like, why were you targeted? And honestly, like, ex-boyfriend aside, I don't think that this swatting was like a targeted like let's get PixelxKitten attack. I do suspect it is because I am a LGBTQ streamer during Pride Month on the Twitch Pride shelf, so it's very clearly branded on my page LGBTQ, as well as I was doing a charity stream. And so I think that just like the people who were doing the swatting, they do this all the time, which is really sick and disgusting because it is a federal offense. But they did this last year during Pride. I'm not the only person who has been swatted this month, unfortunately. And I, luckily for me, like I was best case scenario because I know not everyone has like a situation as like lucky as I have. But that's why, all in all, like why it wasn't worst case scenario, why you didn't see cops barge into our house, shoot us down, and arrest us, is because they already knew who we were. We met them outside. My parents were already talking to them downstairs and in the backyard. So like everything was already kind of de-escalated before I was even involved. And And yeah, I was upset. People are saying that my reaction is going to cause them to try it again, and I don't know. People are just so weird. I don't know how I was supposed to react for a swatting. It's like I was scared and I was angry that this would happen and would jeopardize the lives of my life, my family's life, but then my dog's life, and then my the pregnant dog's life. So it was very overwhelming. And yeah, so I was upset. But we ended up continuing the charity stream. We ended up hitting our goal of the $3,005 raised for survivors.org. Now, one of the main questions that I received is like, well, how did they get your address? A lot of people are speculating that I just like show off my address before every stream. People are assuming that I just tell everyone my address. No, I don't tell people my address. I keep that shit hidden. But there are multiple different ways that people can find people's address. Like, I was talking about this with one of my streamer friends, and I was telling them, like, it's really easy to find someone's address. Here, like, I told them, I was like, do you trust me? And so I just did it like a less than 10-second Google search. I searched up their username, and by Googling their username, I found their personal Facebooks, I found their first and last name, and I found what high school they went to in less than 10 seconds. And so people can do Google searches, people can use IP addresses. Like, there are so many different ways that people can find your address. So unfortunately, it's not hard. Like, everyone's information is public, especially if like you're a registered voter. Like, everything's public, and it's really unfortunate, but it's one of the risks. But that's why I want to talk about my experience, because if you had asked me a week ago what my greatest fear in this whole entire world was, my greatest fear was swatting. But the whole reason why I'm talking about this and raising like awareness about this is because I want people to know that there is a best case scenario for swatting, that like getting swatted is not the end of the world. And so that is why I want to talk about it. Is like, I'm fine. Like, I don't have any sort of like PTSD with the situation. I'm not afraid. I guess the best thing that you could do is just like have that open communication with your local police department and let them know that, hey, I am a streamer, and feel free to use the clip that I have to explain the situation, like what swatting is. Feel free to show them this video, show them my tweets, show them whatever you want to get them to be aware of what swatting is, and so that you and your family and your pets can be safe. Because I think it is good to have that communication. Even if, like, I know that there are some police departments that like aren't as great as mine. Some people might laugh at you, some people, and it's like, that's just the truth of it. But I would rather you guys explain the situation, and I would rather you guys have that first line of defense, instead of assuming that they're just going to laugh at you, or assuming that like that there's going to be worst case scenario. But I did want to take this video to let people know that it's like, I know a lot of people have been offering like their sorries and like their sympathies that this happened. And it's like, I really do appreciate everyone who's reached out to me sympathetically about what has happened. Like, I'm totally fine. My family's fine. We've moved on. It was jarring, at least, to see the security footage that my dad showed me the next day of it was very jarring to see the footage of all the like the officers and like their SWAT gear and their rifles like aimed at our house. That was really jarring. But besides that, like the worst of it is probably like the comments from people saying that like, oh, like no wonder why she was targeted, a healthiest Twitch streamer, because people are calling me fat. It's like, people are saying like the almost awful thing. People are saying W swatter. This is so funny. I love watching these SWAT things. Oh man, why didn't she get arrested? And people are like, oh, then people are questioning the validity of it because my dad walked up instead of an officer. But that's why I want to make this video. Like, it doesn't matter like what my weight is. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm fat or skinny. Like, that had no influence on whether or not I was going to be swatted or whether or not I deserved to be swatted. Because that's what people are saying, is that I deserved it because because I'm an LGBTQ streamer. People are saying I deserved it because of that. People are saying that I deserve it because I'm fat. And people are saying that I deserve it because I was doing a charity stream for survivors.org. So it's a really incredible experience. Not incredible as in a good way. It's incredible as like, it's just insane. It's people on the internet are insane, but honestly, if the comments are like the worst part of the situation, that you could truly tell that I'm one of the lucky ones. I will not be sharing any of the security cam footage because it shows too much of my front house and my neighborhood, and I don't feel comfortable with any more people being aware of where I live. And just for like the safety and the comfort of my family, I would like to not share that information, share that footage. But at the end of the day, I'm okay. My family's okay. My pets are okay. The pregnant dog's okay. She had 13 puppies, so yeah, she's totally fine. My dog Charlie, he's totally fine. It was just all in all completely best case scenario. The only way it could have gone better is if it hadn't happened at all. And so I do very much appreciate everyone who's reached out. We are totally fine. But feel free to go off in the comments, go off and comment about how fat I am, go off and comment about how much I deserve this. I don't care. Like there's not anything in the comments that I haven't read before. But if you guys do have any other questions about my experience or about what happened that I maybe didn't touch in this video, feel free to comment below. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can, if there are any. I do appreciate you guys watching through this. If you guys have any questions, comment them below. Follow on my socials. I go live Monday, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Twitch. And hopefully you will not see me being swatted again. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Face is about to be taken. I have Charlie here.
Let me take Charlie. You're being swatted. Let me get Charlie so I can get the police want to come and take a look.
Okay.
Let me get Charlie.
Are you freaking serious right now?
I am.
We're being swatted right now.
Okay. I told him I want to get Charlie out because he'll be reactive.
He's my biggest fear.
Come on. Charlie, come on.
Charlie, come. Charlie, come. Good boy, Charlie. Good boy. Charlie, it's okay.
Come on.
Charlie, come.
Come on.
Good boy, Charlie.